Yeah, so there's a lot of issues with data, obviously, and one of them is, well, there's two that I'd like you to comment on. One, I've heard, and Anthony likes to say this, and I think it's the conventional wisdom that actually 70% of the effort that goes into creating an algorithm is dedicated to cleaning the data. Is that
Yes.
your impression?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I would say it's probably more than that from
Okay,
my
so there's a
experience.
lot.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's a lot of
yeah.
work,
It's a
and
lot.
so
Yeah,
my question is, so how do we fix that? I mean, everybody can't
yeah,
expect it to do what you just described, and if we're going to get anywhere, it seems to me that there needs to be a fix. So one of the
yeah.
fixes that has been
Hmm.
suggested is data interoperability and a central source of truth, and the Geek Squad that cleans the data. So what's your take? What do we need to do to get rid of this problem?
Yeah. So there are different ways that are being explored currently on the university or academic institution sites. We have started to see some collaboration and institutions coming together to create entities to actually sell their data to interested parties. So I recently read about 13 hospital systems coming together, creating a company that actually going to be responsible for selling their data. So
Right.
that's a very interesting approach. The other approach is through some machine learning technology, something called federated learning, where you don't actually have to give us your data. We will give you the algorithm, train it on your data, and then give us the trained algorithm. And then we're going to give it to the next hospital and do the same thing, next hospital and do the same thing. So that's called federated learning. And we are working with the University of Pennsylvania on a federated learning project for patients with high-grade glioma. So that's another approach.
Okay. So
Yeah, we're still early
yeah.
we're still early, and there's a lot of talk about regulating data and who really owns the data. Is it the hospitals?
Right.
Is it the patients?
Right.
And what are the responsibilities of the hospitals and what are the responsibilities of the industry? There was a recent publication from Stanford that talked about the ethics of data, and they recommended that nobody really owns the data, and that commercial entities can actually use the data and get a fee, get a price, and profit just based on the work that they have done with this data, because the ultimate goal is patients, benefiting the patients. So
Right.
there's still, the jury is still out on on the
Okay. So
data
what are you going to
issues.
do? What are you going to do when the patient owns the data?
I
So
really
let me
don't
just
think.
let me yeah, let
Yeah,
me let me just play that out a little bit.
yeah,
It's my view that well, one view you can take is, I mean, this goes back to the helocell thing. It's my body, it's my tumor, it's my image, and I own the intellectual property rights to that image. This is just a thought experiment.
yeah,
And consequently, I own the asset. It's an asset, just like any other intellectual property. And therefore, I become a patient data entrepreneur. Because now, just like you explained, I can license my data, I could sell my data, I could pair some of it off and keep some and get rid of some. I could sell it or buy it on a patient data exchange, just like corn futures.
yeah.
So in that brave new world, and more patients, incidentally, and patient advocacy groups and ethics groups are sort of pushing this idea. So what happens when the patient owns the data?
I think it's gonna make it a lot more complicated in getting the data to do some of the developments that needs to be done using this data in AI. It's actually, I think it's going to complicate things. I understand the premise that once the hospital uh, when they image the patient and they get paid for the study, they should not own the data anymore because they already got paid for it. So now the patient really is the owner of this data. But trying to get the approval of the patient to use this data is a lot more complicated than it sounds. So the idea here is for the hospitals to be the guardian of the data, or the center that have this data is to be the guardian of the data, but not really the owner of the data. So
Right.
that means that they should share it with any interested entity, as long as both of them can have certain guidelines and rules in place to ensure the protection of this data, and this data will be used ethically. And then the entity that is going to do the development, they have to profit from the work and effort that they put in. So that's that to me, that seems to be the most probable.
The other argument,
yeah.
The other argument is more and more data, more and more healthcare data or sick care data is being generated less and less by hospitals. Imaging centers, CVS, you name it. Like less and less data is coming out of a hospital because the model is migrating from hospital to home. So you're going to have a problem centralizing this at a hospital in the brave new world. And the second issue is, and you're an example, so you get an SBIR grant. And guess who pays for the SBIR grant? Me, the taxpayer. That's where the money comes from. So I give you, the taxpayer, via the SBIR program, give you the money to do God's work. You do it and commercialize the idea and make it into a company. But I don't get anything out of that, the taxpayer. You do, as the company.
You get the benefit of the technology.
Yeah, but I want the money. I made an investment in your company.
You want the financial benefit, not the.
Well, of course. What's in it for
the
me?
Healthcare benefit.
So well, again, this is a thought experiment. I'm playing it out, but people are arguing for and against BIDOL and how it works and SBIR and all that. My point is that is there an argument to be made that, and again, this gets to alternative models of data acquisition. If I paid for your SBIR grant to commercialize this technology, then is there the role of the government to create some aggregate of data that companies can use, but would take a piece of the action? In other words, we'll give you this resource, but we expect some return on our investment in the public good. We want to get some of our SBIR money back, taxpayer money.
Yeah, I think the way that the federal government looks at it is that the return on investment is to actually bring a product to the market that is going to help patients. And I understand what you're trying to say. There should be some financial, compensation. But I don't know how feasible that is. I can't really answer that question.
Yeah, because it would be like an investor saying, "Okay, I'll give you my money, and just do whatever you want."
Percentage of the company.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. So anyway, I don't think that's going to happen, but I introduced it just as an interesting thought experiment. So we got
most people are interested in these grants because they are non-diluting.
They're non-diluting, exactly.
Yeah,
they give you the money, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We're running out of time, and I really appreciate your willingness to share your insights and experience. I hope the audience has enjoyed your presentation. I know I have. Future events, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, not the least of which are AI ethics and the AI and the law. So in the future, we'll probably tee up some people to talk about that stuff. So on behalf of Ali, his team, his family, and Neosoma, best of luck. And to the audience, thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Arlen Myers with the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs, and we'll see you the first Friday of April So keep in touch. Bye.
Thank you so much, Arlen. It was a pleasure.
All right. Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you too.